Mythwrecked has, for well over a year now, held a special place in my heart and a lot of my curiosity, though I admit that it's for personal reasons. In 2023, I got to go to my first ever trade shows with Noisy Pixel, starting with PAX East in Boston. Out of every game I played there, this is the final one to actually release, but it was one of the first that I got to sit down and play, as I started to personally find my groove with playing demos and talking to developers and PR folks. The delightful half hour I spent with it at the time was genuinely helpful in overcoming my overstimulation, helped along by the game's very relaxed vibe. Still, that was over a year and a half and 20-something reviews ago, and a lot can change in that time. So now that I finally have Mythwrecked in my hands, did it live up to my hopes for it? Ambrosia Island begins with our protagonist, Alex, on a heritage trip around Greece, preparing to return home to the UK. Her boat gets caught up in a storm, and she washes up on the shore of a mysterious, clearly inhabited island that aesthetically reminded me a lot of the island from Myst, though that's about the only thing the two games have in common outside of a broad adventure genre. Beginning to explore for shelter, she meets a talking statue that introduces itself as Aura, short for Oracle, and pleads with her to take a strange cell phone-like device and use it to help the residents of the island. After meeting a portly man in a Speedo with wings on his back who introduces himself as Hermes, Alex pretty quickly realizes what she's in for. Everyone on the island is a Greek god who has lost their memories. If she wants to make it home, she'll need to get to the bottom of how that happened, and she'll do it by forming bonds with each of them. Right out of the gate, I liked this take on the gods being approachable, physical people. I've played plenty of games that set them up on a pedestal as grand, mysterious, and easily angered forces of nature, and even Stray Gods from last year placed the protagonist on the defensive by having the pantheon threatening to murder her. Mythwrecked manages to turn them into relatable and accessible characters that I, the player, would actually want to try and make friends with, which is good because they all require Alex's help. Each god has 3 levels of friendship that you progress through by accomplishing 2 things. First, they'll have a specific task for Alex to do something around the island. Hermes asks her to feed the birds as they're his friends, and Zeus and Hera want her to restore power to the hanging lights with Zeus's lightning bolt. And the other 6 are fairly similar affairs that have you running across Ambrosia Island with the help of Hermes' fast travel gateways. I never once minded how much I had to run around though, as the low-key musical score kept me perfect company. The other goal is to find items that correspond with the god's missing memories, by using the phone device's radar function to discover them hidden in the environment. This system is simple but intelligent, marking the zone on the map where an item is located, and with the game both accounting for multiple signals in one area, which happens frequently, and notifying the player if they can't reach something yet. You also won't find items that are meant to be delivered at higher levels until you actually reach them, which helps keep things intuitive when trying to work out what thing goes to whom, as the items get tied together with a story during each level up. You'll also be collecting ambrosia fruits to be traded with the gods for upgrades like Hermes' fast travel or Ares' farming plots, or decorations like Hephaestus' furniture. I like the idea of this system as you are meant to be making offerings to the gods thematically, but in practice I'm more neutral. There were times when it just felt a bit pointless, as I could just skip a few days forward to gather fruit from the farming plots. Personally, when it comes to tradable collectible items like this, I prefer for there to be a finite amount available that has to get used more strategically, but the respawning fruit didn't detract from my experience either. What did ultimately detract from it was Mythwrecked's ending. I spent about 9 hours completing the game, a perfectly reasonable amount of time during which I 100%ed basically everything that I could do, and I really enjoyed even the brief time I got to spend with the gods. But the ending sequence put a couple of things into perspective for me. First, it's visually a bit underwhelming. The state of the island could have changed a lot more given what was happening, and the actual fight comes down to a single attack that you don't see the effect of on screen. But more of an issue was that I realized the protagonist Alex didn't feel much like she'd gone on her own journey of character development. She volunteers to help once she realizes Hermes and the others are genuinely the Greek gods, and we get some discussion about how she's running away or procrastinating dealing with issues at home. But then, at the end, she doesn't feel like she's had any personal breakthrough. She's just fine with going back to her normal life and leaving her new heavenly friends. The story could have been a lot more emotional had it given more for her to do with them and increased the weight of the friendships she made along the way, but the ending is just as clean and cozy as the rest of the game, despite a last-second twist that I genuinely didn't see coming. If if a sequel ever comes around, I will happily be here for it, but I do hope that it puts a bit more emphasis on the narrative. Mythwrecked is a game that reinvents the wheel when it comes to portraying the familiar characters of the Greek pantheon, but plays it safe in regards to being a cozy adventure game. I was truly fascinated by its early stages, but by the end I was noticing some frayed edges and missed potential that I really think could be improved by a sequel I definitely want to see made. If a title has a narrative I'm meant to get invested in, it has to keep up the momentum, and while it gets most of the way there, Mythwrecked's conclusion just needed a little more oomph to get my waterworks going. Noisy Pixel is giving Mythwrecked Ambrosia Island a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy Pixel.